Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, March 30th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 157 days, the game against Michigan in 241 days, and we will be back at Ohio State a little later on today to talk to the Buckeyes about probably not the Indiana game and the Michigan game just yet, but some of the stuff leading up to Saturday's student appreciation practice and, of course, the spring game on April 15th. And we're going to be talking to the defense. We're going to be talking to the secondary, cornerbacks, safeties today. So a lot of defensive talk today. And we're going to be talking defense on this morning's show as well, because we're going to be hearing a bunch from Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. His defense obviously has been a big focal point for Ohio State fans, not always in a good way over the last year or so. Buckeyes were better last year, but not where they needed to be, and they will tell you that. So this spring is all about getting better, getting more comfortable during that second season with Jim Knowles' defense, cutting down on some of those big plays, being a little bit faster, a little bit quicker to the ball, and all that fun stuff. So we're going to be hearing a lot from Jim Knowles today about that and some of the changes they're looking at making. And one of the things that we've seen them sort of work on is taking some of the, take that nickel position and put a true cornerback on the field in some of those spots as well. That's something that they worked on a little bit in the scrimmage. We've seen it a little bit during some of the practice windows we've gotten to see as well. Is that an intentional thing? Are they really thinking about using three true cornerbacks and maybe taking that nickel, who's a little bit more of kind of a hybrid safety kind of role, taking that role off the field? Here's what Jim Knowles had to say about that.
Yeah, we look at what that guy has to do, right, in terms of how it fits to our opponents and everything that position has to do. And we think a corner can do it. We think it's not a place where you really have to be, a hard, tough run defender. And we can involve our corners there more, and we think that'll give us more depth as the season goes along. We didn't have a lot of depth at the nickel position last year when Cam was hurt a lot. So that'll give us an increased ability to get those guys reps too.
As the Buckeyes are looking to build up their rotation of cornerbacks, one of the ways they've done that is by bringing in transfer Davison Igbinosun from Ole Miss. He was someone who was a freshman starter at Ole Miss last year and is now transferred to Ohio State. He's not working with the starters yet, but it sounds like he's someone who has been fairly impressive early on in Jim Knowles' eyes.
Great. He's looking fantastic. He gets his hands on a lot of balls. He competes. He's got a mental toughness to him. Very pleased to have him here.
Igbinosun is a first-year Buckeye, but a second-year college football player, and there are some other second-year corners on this team as well, including Jair Brown and Ryan Turner. Those are two of the guys who have been working at nickel at times this spring. So, where do they maybe ultimately fit on this defense?
Jair Brown, yeah, and Ryan. So all those guys that are, maybe a second or third corner, I think as many reps as we can get them at nickel helps us be ready for all the things we can have and get them playing time and be ready for all the things that can happen during the season too.
Last fall, as we were looking forward to the 2023 season and sort of projecting who might and might not be back, I think most people had Josh Proctor firmly on the won't be back, off to the NFL, whatever it is for Josh Proctor. Instead, he is in fact back for one more season with the Buckeyes. And when someone comes back for that one last year in a, what you sort of would consider a contract year, potentially with the NFL looming a year from now, he is now working at the adjustor position, that sort of free safety, deep safety position at the top of the defense. Coming back for that last year with that contract year kind of looming, is there sort of an increased sense of purpose around Josh Proctor this year?
I'm seeing, a focus, a determination. Josh is a really great kid to be around, and he's I think become extremely serious this spring. He knows it's his chance. He's running out of time. We can point out the things that have happened to him in the past. We can teach from it, and he's got to do it in practice. That's the only time he can do it, and he is. Just watch him how he pursues the ball and the angles. I mean, those are invaluable reps because something bad happens, that guy has to make the tackle. We didn't do that all the time last year, and I think he's focused on that. You don't have to tackle, just being in the right position all the time. So yeah, I'm seeing some good things from him.
Josh Proctor's 2022 season was honestly a little bit weird. He started the first game against Notre Dame got burned for a long gain on that first series of the season, got pulled, and then never really won back that job full-time again for the rest of the fall. So what exactly happened with Josh Proctor last year?
Yeah, I felt like, with the transition and, he had some nagging injuries that I think held back his reps early. And, I feel like when you come in with a new program that on defense, that in order for me to, develop that confidence and faith, guys got to play a lot. They got to play a lot in practice, and he missed some reps and just kind of set them behind.
During Saturday's scrimmage, we got a chance to look at the defense and what they're really going to maybe potentially be lining up like. And Josh Proctor, as I said, was at that adjustor position, which is the deep safety, free safety position, whatever you want to call it. And Lathan Ransom was at the bandit position, which is their boundary safety, sort of the traditional strong safety in a defense. So is that how Jim Knowles is thinking they might line up this fall?
No, I think that's the way. That's the way we've been working it. I think it puts them to play to their strengths. It puts Josh in the middle of the field more. It allows Lathan to be the drop-down run defender more. And Josh can do it too. But we're just trying to play to their strengths. And then, you have Sonny, who I think is, over there with Lathan, doing a great job. And I think we'll be much better there this year.
During that answer, you heard him say the name Sonny Styles. Yes, it is Sonny Styles time again, one of the very, very hot topics of conversation this spring. He is working behind Lathan Ransom at Bandit right now, but he's also someone that Jim Knowles has talked about wanting to get on the field. So if you've got him working behind a guy who is a veteran, a proven veteran, and who you figure is probably going to be a pretty big part of the plans this fall, and you want to get Sonny Styles in the field too, how do you work around that?
We're going to get him in, but I think when you start out, you have to establish depth. You got to establish competition. We need to be better as a defense, and I think everybody needs to feel that competition. So having Sonny there right now establishes a nice competition with him and Lathan, and then ultimately, you're right. We think they both can play, and then it's my job to find a way to get them both on the field.
And this question is framed a little more broadly, but I think you can kind of read between the lines the type of conversations we're talking about here. When you have a trusted veteran, and then you have a talented young player at the same position, what do you need to see from that young guy in order to put him in and trust him to replace that trusted veteran at least some of the time?
You have to start in base defense. You have to, take that young, promising player, and he's got to win with the twos, right? You have to show that, number one, you can dominate with the twos, right? Start there. Okay, you show us you can dominate with the twos. Now we can start to mix you with the ones, and you show you hold your own with the ones. Now it's up to me to create more positions and opportunities for you. But you got to win. You got to kick ass with the twos first, And I think let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's win all those reps first.
Whenever you have a new coach come in, they always talk about wanting to, an aggressive attacking mentality, and you want those guys to be playing fast. And okay, so now we're in year 2 of Jim Knowles. You don't want them overthinking on that defense, right? So we're in year 2 with Jim Knowles. Now they've had a year in that system to learn the system, maybe understand things, not have to do as much thinking on the field. So are they actually playing faster now that they're in year 2?
Yes, particularly in the back end. We're getting our hands on more balls. We're competing. This is, a great offense, and we did not do our job in those matchup games that we needed to. And in order to get better, we have to win against our offense. We have to compete. We have to fight. I mean, we can't just say, well, Marv's a great player. He's the best player, so he beat us. No, because that's who we're going to face when we get into the matchup games. So we have to win in practice. So what I'm pushing and what I'm seeing is our guys who are fighting more at, the point of emphasis where you have to make the play, and we're getting our hands on a lot more balls, and that's noticeable.
When you're figuring out where you're going to use Sonny Styles, is that a decision you need to make this spring, or is that something that you can maybe drag into summer and even fall before you figure out where you're really going to use him? And is spring even enough time to be able to make that decision?
No, no. I think we want to go all the way through fall camp with him because, in spring you're really working on the basics, making sure that he and everyone else has a mastery of the base defense. And then when you get more schemey as you go into camp, and if he or anyone else has proven themselves in the spring and the beginning of camp, now you can start to use more creativity to build a spot for him.
Spring is a time when sometimes with veteran guys out, young guys get a chance to step up. And one of the young guys who seems to have stepped up this spring is Gabe Powers. He's someone who kind of caught people's eye during that scrimmage on Saturday. And then again, after practice, Tony Gerderman saw him in a kind of group. We talked about this on yesterday's show where, sort of a leadership council. And there was Gabe Powers kind of in the middle of that. And you sort of start to see this stuff. And it's, eventually it kind of starts to mean something. Maybe it adds up a little bit. So what has Jim Knowles' impressions been in terms of Gabe Powers this spring?
Gabe's getting better. I mean, he's establishing, that respect from his teammates. We're encouraging him to compete. He's getting better with his hands and his feet. He's improving, and expectations are high for him, so I'm staying after him.
Whenever you change scheme, as the Buckeyes did when Knowles arrived last year, sometimes it takes a little while for the personnel to catch up. The Buckeyes went from a 4-3 defense, 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, to a 4-2-5 defense. So you still have the 4 defensive linemen. Now it's just 3 linebackers instead of 2, and you're playing 5 guys in the secondary instead of 4. So going from 3 linebackers to 2, has that created like a personnel log jam at linebacker? Or is that just the result of that? Is it just, hey, that just makes it more competitive?
No, I think it's just created competition. I mean, I think that speaks for itself. I mean, I think Tommy and Steele, the numbers they put up last year, what they did, the improvement they made, and Cody now being able to, play in that one role, he's having a great spring. So I think it just created competition. I mean, where the issues come are really with the nickel position, right? I mean, that to me is when you it's the nickel position, and that's why we're playing more corners there to get more depth at that position.
Ryan Day has talked about the fact that he wants to give up play calling this year to Brian Hartline to sort of take some things off his plate and let him focus on a little bit more of the big picture stuff. That's kind of playing out on the defensive side of the ball as well, where the addition of James Laurinaitis has taken some of the linebacker responsibilities off of Jim Knowles' plate. So has that really freed him up a little bit more for some big picture defensive thinking?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a pro. That's an All-American. He's level-headed. It allows me to do a lot more in terms of the defense and other positions and spend more time being creative. And plus, he's a really nice guy, so we can play good cop, bad cop with the linebackers. He's a really nice guy. I'm not so nice.
Sometimes there are players that Ohio State fans give up on long before the Ohio State coaching staff has given up on them. And one of those guys this year, it feels like Cam Martinez. Cam Martinez had one very bad play against Michigan last year, and I think that has stuck in Buckeye fans' minds, and a lot of people have kind of written him off. The coaching staff very much has not written Martinez off. You heard Jim Knowles mention injury issues from last year earlier. That obviously probably played a little bit of a factor into his play last year. So how is Cam Martinez continuing to develop as a player this spring?
He's got great feet. Cam has excellent feet. Reminds me of a guy I had at Duke, Michael Carter, who's in the NFL. Doesn't have to be big. He's got great feet. With Cam, it's just all about confidence, right? It's establishing that confidence. Playing against Marv in the slot sometimes. That's great for Cam. He just has to establish confidence. He's got all the tools, but his feet are great.
The other name that we have been seeing at nickel a bunch this spring is Jihad Carter. He is the transfer from Syracuse. How has his adjustment been going this year?
Yeah, so Jihad, he's playing nickel right now and doing great. I think he is going to have a continued role at all 3 safety positions when it ultimately comes down to becoming game ready. He's extremely coachable. Like if he, being new here, if he makes a mistake, you can get him on the sideline in practice and he goes out and fixes it the next play. Not all guys can do that. So that shows you a guy who has experience. He's competing at nickel, doing a really good job, but I think he's headsy enough to play any of those safety positions for us.
Now, Carter was a multi-year starter at Syracuse, and now he's at Ohio State, and he's just fighting for a starting job here. So how has Jihad Carter handling that transition. That is not an easy transition to go from multi-year starter to battling for a starting job now. And in this answer, you're going to also hear him mention the initials IGB. That is a nickname for Davison Igbinosun, the transfer from Ole Miss.
He puts his head down and works. IGB and Jihad, those are quality. You come into a situation, you know, I'm sure they could have gone to other places where people were promising them the world. We just promised them that we would make them better and they would make us better. And that's what they did. I have not heard a single word out of those guys that's not positive and team-oriented.
There is always a lot of talk about targeting and illegal hits and all that kind of stuff and missed tackles, all that kind of stuff. That has been a very big topic around college football in a whole lot of ways in the last few years. So Jim Knowles was asked, what does a clean and safe and fundamental tackle look like to him? Because right now they're kind of focusing on those fundamentals and getting that tackle, all the little details right. So what is Jim Knowles looking for when he sees one of his guys trying to tackle someone from the other team?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't involve your head. You know, that's number one. You know, you're not dropping your head. You're keeping your head out of the tackle. You're in good position, right? So unless it's in the middle of in between the tackles, rarely are you going to be head up on a guy, you know, where you're just kind of thudding him up and butting him up and wrapping. That's not going to happen. Everything in football happens on the angles, right? So if you're in good position and you're on the right hip and your head's in the right place, you're not out of control, right? Or, you know, horse collaring or grabbing a guy's jersey. You know, you're just staying on track and on course and wrapping up, and it's crisp, it's clean.
One of the other big stories this spring has been the move of Jack Sawyer. And Jack Sawyer's not really moving. He's still just with the defensive lineman. But they've kind of done away with the Jack position this spring. And they're really just letting Jack Sawyer just focus on being a defensive end. That's something that Larry Johnson has sounded very happy about when we've talked to Larry Johnson. And Jim Knowles was asked, you know, is Jack Sawyer looking maybe more comfortable now that he's just focused on being a defensive end?
Yeah, Jack is getting better every day. It's really, I think that move and staying out of that package this spring has been really good for Jack. He gets to focus on the fundamentals with Coach Johnson, and I really like his progress with him on one end and JT on the other. I think we got a great pair to start out with, and you know, I'm going to bring that package back, but I'm really targeting Mitchell Melton. You know, I was really high on him last spring until he got hurt. I thought he was a linebacker, D-line. I think he's got a great combination. And, you know, come fall, I want to look at CJ too, because CJ is a guy who has such great athletic ability and speed. I think if I can direct him more and not have him read as much but attack more, I think he can be a real threat too at that position. So those are two guys I want to look at for that package.
In that answer, you heard him talk about Mitchell Melton and CJ Hicks as guys who are going to potentially be at the jack position. One of the other reasons the jack position is not really being anything done with it this spring is because Mitchell Melton is out. He is not practicing, and CJ Hicks is still kind of learning. CJ Hicks is, you know, not quite ready to be in that role yet. He's still kind of getting up to speed. But does Jim Knowles ultimately view him as someone who could be kind of a multi-talented weapon, maybe someone who could even cover guys downfield?
He can cover. I mean, CJ can really do whatever he sets his mind to. He is that good of an athlete. So we are continuing to work with him on, you know, the basic fundamentals of being a linebacker in a 4-2 scheme, right? That's different than being an outside linebacker or a rush end. So he's learning, getting better every day. But to your point, I think we can target him other places too.
And finally, we mentioned the schematic change they made last year, going from a 4-3 to a 4-2-5. When you're a linebacker and you go from being one of 3 to one of 2, how different are the responsibilities of a linebacker in a 4-2-5 defense?
Nothing is non-negotiable at the Ohio State. My job is to get a defense that wins. And so whatever's best, that's what we're going to do. So to your point, absolutely. I mean, we're recruited for a 4-down. We got the best D-line coach in the country. You know, it's not what I want, it's what works. You know, we're going to continue to experiment with it. And, you know, if it catches fire with a guy like Mitch or CJ, you know, And I think it's good in recruiting, like I said, because we can show things to guys, you know, where we can match them up against different people. So I think it's always good to have in the arsenal, but we're ultimately going to do what's best for the team and the defense.
All right, that will do it for today. We will be back at the Woody a little later on today. We'll be talking to the corners, talking to the safeties. So there's going to be much more defensive talk coming up today and then tomorrow and probably a little bit over the weekend as well as we head into the about the halfway point of spring football. Today will be practice 7 of 15, and then Saturday will be practice 8 at the student appreciation practice. So we're kind of hitting the halfway point of spring football right about now. Lots of stuff to talk about. Obviously, we will be talking about the quarterback battle and all that fun stuff on the offensive side of the ball as they try and rebuild the offensive line. But the defense, obviously, going to be a big, big story this spring, this summer, this fall, and beyond. So lots more to talk about the Ohio State football team, and we'll be talking about all of it at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Fantastic team of insiders covering the team, covering recruiting, covering X's and O's, scheme, all that great stuff, plus a really fun community on our message board. So sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And you can be part of that fun as well. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.